What up, people? So the Sprinter is back in the shop. It's work in progress. Today was to do this. As somebody knows, this is a transfer fuel pump inside of the tank in the Sprinter. This come out of 2008, and the one I put it in, it was from 2012. Did not buy a new one. Ended up buying a new to me. It was used. The reason I replaced the fuel pump, transfer pump, actually this pump was changed too. I'm chasing this problem for quite a while. Here's the pump. It's been replaced. So it has a hard time starting. So every time the vehicle will sit overnight, I'm trying to get my thought together. The vehicle will sit overnight. It would take some time, not all time, 2 cycles to start it. So what I mean by 2 cycles, Sprinters, you hit the key, it will crank, and then it stops, shut it off, start it back up, crank, and then it will start. It doesn't do it all the time, but it's, in general, it has a hard time to starting. So I thought it was the fuel pump inside of the tank, which is transfer pump. So come to find out that wasn't it. So I started digging a little bit more, started making research on the internet, and there's one guy, and I think he's in Missouri. So I ended up calling him, and he advised me to change the pump. And then he says most likely it could not solve the problem. It's probably most likely your injector. What they end up doing, since they sold, it has 531,000 miles, they will not, they're basically losing prime in a rail. And there's a way to test it, but my scan tool for some reason doesn't do it. But if your fuel pump is good and the high pressure pump is good, most likely is your injector. So I'm debating, should I change the injectors or not? So then I started thinking about it. Before I should have changed the transfer pump. This is your supply line. Sorry, I got the filter already back on. But this is your supply line after the fuel filter, which is the fuel filter sits right there. In theory, I could have put a fuel pressure gauge on here. And I believe it's supposed to read like 80 to 90 PSI or 100. And if that would have tested out fine, then I wouldn't have to change the fuel pump. But I was too motivated to change the fuel pump in the tank. The changing the fuel pump in the tank is fairly simple. I'm not even going to explain. It's not a big deal to actually drop the fuel pump on fuel tank out of the Sprinter. Obviously, you got to have a vehicle on a jack stand, so on a lift. But the key is to take this cover off, and there's a single bolt that holds the neck, because the neck is the part of the tank, and there's literally 3 straps. And right here up the front, you have plastic lines what gets hooked up to the pump. There's one chunk from a pump to there, and then it goes in the steel lines right underneath the vehicle. I'm not going to climb underneath it. But if you do need to change the fuel pump for some reason, let's say you'll fail, please do not cut the hole in the back here, because I watched one guy in the YouTube, and he actually gives you the measurements. Back there, you go off the center of the seat, like 5 inches or whatever it is, and you cut a hole and your fuel pump sits on the top. I'm like, really? To change the fuel pump is not bad. Be honest with you, obviously I'm in the shop, but if you have one of these things and you're driving on a daily basis and you need to change it, you literally can't change that thing in a driveway, long as you have jack like this, which is my favorite jack, all aluminum from Harbor Freight. Sorry, let me turn my music down. But that's all you basically need to change the fuel pump. But once again, I'm back to the walk up over here. This thing's hardly ever fail. For reason being, because they're in the diesel fuel. Diesel fuel is more greasier, so they're not like a gas burner. They sit there fairly tight, because some of the pumps, like you put it in, this one actually has a tension on the spring, so the spring actually pushing the pump down so that thing doesn't bounce inside there, and it sits inside of the plastic tank. So even if you drive this thing on a gravel road a lot, I'm losing my thought. Since they're in a plastic fuel tank, they don't get as much vibration, so they didn't get beat up. The only one thing I noticed, there's a tiny little screen, and I have a bunch of black, I don't know what that is, stuff on the end of it. So I cleaned it out. The new use to me, the one I got it, it's I brake cleaned the hell out of it, cleaned it out, put it in, and problem actually was not solved. It may be very little, it starts a little bit better, but I kind of did a test on it prior to that. If you dump half a quart of training fluid in a diesel fuel every time you fuel up, it seems like makes a difference. Like, for some reason it starts easy. I don't know how is that possible, but it does. So I will try to run more injector cleaner through it, because this van sat for a very long time, and the guy who owned it before me, he drove it and it was derating, and it wouldn't do regen and all kind of different stuff. Was getting terrible fuel mileage. So maybe something carboned up real bad in the combustion chamber, whatever it is. So I will run injector cleaner and see what it does. And then by looking at that pump, once again, the transfer pump, I forgot what I'm trying to say, but I was determined there's a crap on the bottom of the tank. So maybe I will need to change the fuel filter. Not wait 10,000 miles or 15, whatever that needs to be replaced, but replace them more often and see if it makes a difference. And though I'm saying, when I changed the fuel filter, when I got this thing, I changed the oil fuel filter, actually cooling the whole thing. It seems like it was starting a lot better. So maybe I do have a plugged up fuel filter by now. But I put on like 2,500 miles. And this pump already been replaced. So this is my old pump. And I put it in from a newer, was like 120, 140,000 mile Sprinter van. So that's the little information I got. If you have same problem, leave the comment below and see if you solved it without changing the injectors. But I have a feeling that's what my problem is.